Thank you. This is quite a festive an occasion, and my wife Joanne came up with me, and I always like driving and come to these things with her because she does all the driving. All I have to do is hold on to the wheel. Well, I'm here to present Bill Iannicelli, a very dear friend of mine. You know, Bill was born March 4th. I'll never forget that date because it's the day before my wife's birthday, only a few years earlier, 1924. Bill is age 70 now, and married Phil, Altoona, has a daughter and a son, grandchildren. Bill graduated from Altoona in 1942. He lettered in football and track, 1940, 1942. In 1942, he made second team All-State, and he won the long jump title, jumping 22 feet, 8 inches. There aren't too many people who can still do that today. And that's when you're running in grass and dirt, and the pits are a little bit different. Bill started his college days at Catawba College in South Carolina, North Carolina, in 1942. However, only completed 1 year before enlisting in the Marine Corps in 1942, and was sent to Franklin Marshall College. There he lettered in both football and track. Before leaving for active duty, Bill made honorable mention, second team All-East, first team All-State, and he was on a football team that was 8-1, probably would have been an undefeated team at the F&M, but they lost their quarterback. Halfway through the season, he had to go on active duty along with a couple other players on the team. That's a different day and age than what we see today. But Bill went on then to become a second lieutenant, and came back to F&M in 1947. I'm probably messing all these up, Bill, but before Bill left, he won the Penn Relays, became a great javelin thrower, and won the Penn Relays with a throw of 191 feet, 11 inches and a half. That year he went on, this is all in 1943, he went on to throw the javelin 210 feet in an AAU meet. In that meet was Buddy Young, and already mentioned Barney Ewell, and Barney Ewell ended up going on to the Olympics and won a gold medal on our 400-meter relay team in 1948. And Barney is a dear friend of ours and lives in Lancaster. So Bill went on in 1944, he went into the service. He left the season like the quarterbacks did before. He left halfway through the year. Spent 10 years in China. And then when he came back in 1947, he returned to F&M. And there he played 1 year of football and 2 years of track. Bill was a little All-American, first team. He was first team All-State. He was first team All-East. Bill also had a tryout that year with the New York Yankees. Now that's the old American Football Conference, and he met up with his old friend Buddy Young there again. He also played semi-pro football. Of course, in those days, anytime you could get a buck, you know, that's how you did it. And he played for the White Roses of York. And he did all this weighing about 175 pounds. In track, at F&M, Bill won every single event, and the two events that he did, javelin and long jump, every dual meet and tri-meet, and every Mid-Atlantic Conference championship, he won both of those events, never lost one. And he's probably the only one that can ever say that, and that's a very competitive conference. At the end of the 1 year, and he won the Penn Relays again and the javelin, and he went out to Salt Lake City for the NCAA title with his coach Tom Floyd, and back then he had to fight to get his 2 javelins put on the plane. They wouldn't let him in, and back then it took about 20 hours to get to Salt Lake City, where now you go out there in about 3. So that was quite an interesting time for Bill. Later on, Bill took a second for All-American status, and in 1948, he just missed by winning his 3rd title in the Penn relays in the javelin, coming in second and missing by inches. Bill finished 4th, missing All-American that year, and back then they only took 4 places or 3 places. Now they take 8. So, you know, Bill would have been an All-American there. After that meet, Bill went out to the NCAAs. He and Phil jumped the train all the way to Chicago, got out of Chicago, and he placed 6th in the Olympic trials. Again, they only took 4. So in Bill's day, he was one of the outstanding javelin throwers. Bill's coaching career started shortly after he competed. He went to Penn Manor for a year and then came back to F&M. His coaching career at F&M is one of the most unbelievable ones you hear. He coached track 35 years. He had 265 wins, 94 losses, 74% winning. That's unbelievable. Bill also, in that stretch, I was fortunate enough to be one of his assistant coaches. I coached football and then I helped him with track. We had an 8-year span. We went undefeated. We had 88 consecutive wins in dual and tri meets and 1 conference title. Bill also coached our cross-country team, and in the cross-country, Bill had 218 wins, 54 losses, for a winning percent of 80. That's unbelievable. And that his record in coaching can match anybody anywhere. Bill has coached many businessmen, lawyers, but there are 2 particular individuals that went to nearby State College High School, Brian Goss and Eric Combo, and both those 2 kids earned All-American honors. Just a small insight, Bill, in his coaching career, he coached football, he coached basketball, he coached track, just about every sport in those days, everybody coached. They had no recruiting to do, so all they did was coach. That's the way to live. But in this thing, he used to do scouting. And his friend George McGinnis was also on the coaching staff, and George built his own airport over in Columbia, Pennsylvania, which is right next to Lancaster. And they used to fly to these different places when they used to do their scouting. And I called George before I came over here because he had some interesting tales. He says, we used to take off, he says, I'd have the controls and Bill would have a road map. Now he had controls, but sometimes they didn't work. And one time they were late getting to a game, and the airport was quite a ways from the field, so they buzzed this cow pasture. They had to buzz the field to get the cows out of the way to land. Then they taxied over to the house, and asked the lady if they could park the plane here so they could go scout the game. Try that today and you'll end up in jail. They also came back from Syracuse one time, and they landed at George's airfield, and the guy taxied in right behind him, and they said, what are you doing? The guy said, well, the guy at Syracuse said, if I followed you, I'm heading to Virginia. He says, I'll follow you down to Pennsylvania, I'll get that much closer. He said he did it with binoculars. Bill Iannicelli is probably one of the most loyal guys you'll ever want to meet. His loyalty to his family, every summer I know Bill goes to Maine, he and Phil, and he used to work at camp, and he's been doing that for over 30 years. And both Phil's mother and Bill's mother just passed away here shortly, not too long ago, and during the summer, they used to make that trek back and forth from Maine just to check in on the parents, and the same is true with his two children. And I know you just don't get anybody as caring as Bill. To his track people, dedication is something that I can remember. We used to have an old cinder track, and every time it rained, the track flooded, and if we had a track meet, who would be out there with a digging iron, digging holes in the thing? His hands would be bloody from blisters, digging holes just so the track would drain, and always walking in the track, picking out big cinders and chucking them so the kids wouldn't get hurt. I think that the biggest savior for us at Franklin Marshall College was the year they brought the V12 program to F&M. Back then, the colleges were really very close to closing their doors because they didn't have enough men. And the V12 kept the doors open at F&M, but just as importantly, it brought Bill Iannicelli to Franklin Marshall College. That in itself was one of the most important things for us. Bill had a saying. He says, you give your best, and winning will take care of itself. Here's a guy that's winning all the time, because that's all he does. He gives his best in everything. Bill Iannicelli.